Let's see. Didn't know I'm doing this for 5 days. See if I can get this one right. Mac Engel, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, Engel Podcast, here to talk about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart, as it is yours, and that is the topic that is a gift from God, Caitlin Clark. For all of you wondering why there is so much talk and chatter about a women's basketball player is because she's a hit. And the one thing you need to know about sports talk and generally media talk in general, you play the hits. Caitlin Clark is a hit. Talked about her last week for a different reason. We're going to talk about her again because since I talked about her last, Team USA women's basketball executives decided that Caitlin Clark is not one of the 12 best players available to play for the Summer Olympics in Paris. So Caitlin Clark, the most popular player in the world, will not be playing for the best team in the world. From a basketball standpoint, I get it. When you're putting together a team, it's a judgment call, and it's your responsibility 999 times out of 1,000 to just worry about winning. And if the people who put together that team do not think Caitlin Clark is the best fit and best asset that will help them win gold, go for it. This is the one exception. And I say this as someone who experienced the challenge of selling and promoting women's basketball firsthand. See, when I was in college for 2 years, I was a student assistant in the Kansas Athletic Media Relations Office, where I had to work all of the women's home basketball games in front of 1,800 fans. My first job out of college was as a full-time intern in what was then the Southwest Missouri State Athletic Department. It's Missouri State University now. I had to work all the women's home basketball games. And women's basketball in Springfield, Missouri back then was actually a pretty in-demand product. After that, I went to work for TCU in its athletic department when TCU was not what it is today. When that women's basketball team was one of the worst in the nation. They had just hired a new coach where they had decided finally to put a little resources and attention into women's basketball. So it was my job as the media relations director to promote it. You don't know how hard, discouraging, and disheartening it is sometimes to promote those things that you believe in to a fan base and a media that just doesn't care because they have other interests, because people are watching other things. And you care about it and you believe in it because you get to know the people and you know they're good stories and you know this is a compelling product. You might think it, and you might try to convince somebody else to think it, but if they're not buying it, money doesn't lie. If you'd have told me back then, in 1996, that women's basketball would have a stable, viable professional league here in the United States, and that women's basketball would be as popular as it is now, selling out arenas, not all of them, but more popular now than ever before, I would have said, put down the crack pipe. That is never going to happen. It is happening. This is a slow burn. This takes a long, long time. And this is why Team USA women's basketball executives lost sight of the bigger game. Because if their priority is to really win the gold, all evidence suggests they could put out their 50th best player all the way down to the 62nd best player that they've evaluated, and they would still roll to Olympic gold. The gap between the United States and every other advanced country in this sport is so big, the United States has repeatedly demonstrated they can put out anybody, any decent player, and they're still probably better than the best players from France, Canada, Japan, and every other country on earth. I know this because I have looked it up. The International Olympic Committee added women's basketball as a medal sport beginning in 1976. And since that time, the United States in women's basketball games is 72-3. 72-3. It has won gold every time since 1976. Pardon me, 1996, rather. It's a big difference. It won silver in 76. It didn't participate in 1980 because of the boycott. It won gold again in 84. It won gold again in 88. It won bronze in 1992. And that bronze is the biggest reason why women's basketball is where it is today. Because Team USA executives put their heads together and said, we have to promote this team. So they put together not arguably, the best women's basketball team that has ever played in 1996. And that team barnstormed the United States and played in college arenas all over the country before it went to Atlanta in 96 and rolled to a gold medal. That team and that Olympics is the biggest reason why we are where we are today with women's basketball. There was momentum, there was interest because they were cognizant about they had to sell that sport to families, to kids. And that exposure created an interest and galvanized a whole bunch of little girls to play basketball. That's where the women's basketball game is still today. You got to sell. Yeah, you're going to go out and win gold, and you need to win gold. But your goal right now still is you need little girls and people to watch the game. And if they're going to watch because I'm Caitlin Clark and she's not going to embarrass your roster, you put her on that bench. Because what we have seen in these women's basketball games for Team USA over the years is that players 9 through 12, they're going to get on the floor because the games are that out of hand. Caitlin Clark is not one of the 12 best players yet. She will be. And there are a lot of perfectly legitimate basketball reasons not to put her on this team. I get it. But this is an exception to the rule. Team USA basketball executives in 1996 did a wonderful job not only putting together the best team that ever played, but a team that is one of the most significant in the history of the sport. They still have that responsibility today. That's why Caitlin Clark needs to be on that roster.